Welcome to Kibbe on Liberty. So we all went to this beautiful premiere last night at the Cato Institute of your brand new film. Has there been other viewings of Undivide Us, or was that like the first coming out party?
So we actually had our North American premiere was at the Big Apple Film Festival in November, and so that was huge, and we had a sold out crowd, and it was amazing. And last night was actually a private screening, technically. So
we're not even allowed to talk about it, really.
So we still will technically have like a public DC premiere, because yesterday was like, you were invited, right? It was invite only. It was very fancy. It was schmancy.
Yeah.
There were cocktails served.
Yes. Ben, since I know you're going to have a hard time getting words in edgewise, I'm gonna give the floor to you. I'd love for both of you to sort of introduce yourself, and then we'll get into the film, and we'll get into the subject matter, because it's the question of polarization and how to get Americans to hear each other again is something I've been obsessed with ever since we started Free the People. So it's a big deal here. But who exactly are you? Why are you here?
Yeah, well, who am I? I'm Ben Klutsey. I'm with the Mercatus Center at George Mason University, and I run a program called Pluralism and Civil Exchange. And the reason that we launched this project was because we started to think a lot about polarization. We are an ideas organization, and sort of the marketplace of ideas is important. If you want innovation, you want human flourishing, you want good ideas to just bubble up, right? You need an environment that's oriented towards a lot of discourse and engagement and debate. And as we saw that this sort of things are shifting towards more and more polarization, realizing that that's really a difficult environment to be in for ideas to thrive. So we decided to really get into this. And the fundamental question that we are trying to figure out is, how can we live together amidst, deep divides and differences? How can we coexist? We need to. We should.
Well, one of the things you taught me is it's not just polarization, that it's actually this toxic polarization. Like polarization, like difference is good. Like that's part of the American system, right? Like we always talk about like Hamilton and Jefferson basically hated each other's guts, right? But they still were part of
Team Jefferson over here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, dude. But like, but they were both really instrumental in the founding of this incredible country, right? And divides, we think about like we think that the Civil War, right? That is not where we want to go. But like the civil rights movement, we have had lots of times in this country where we have really disagreed about how are we going to grapple with these issues. I think the issue right now, and this is something that Ben and Tony, the other like amazing star of the film, Tony Woodley from the State Policy Network, like that they taught me as I was kind of researching this, is that the toxic polarization, it actually dehumanizes the people on the other side. It says, you're not just like wrong, you're stupid and you don't deserve the benefits of citizenship.
Yeah.
And that's like the real, that's the thing that takes us to crazy, like non-American places, I think.
Tony has been on the show as well, and when his book came out, which is very much influenced the film. Right?
Yeah, totally.
So it's I still am of this naive kind of hippy-dippy view that diversity is a good thing.
Yeah.
And like I'm thinking about, I usually quote Hayek in this program, but I'm going to quote Ludwig von Mises instead, because I think about the essential nature of conversation. And he famously says the market isn't a thing or a place; it's a process. And that was something. I was at Mercatus before it was called Mercatus, and we used to quote this all the time. And another way of saying that it's a process is saying it's a conversation.
Yeah.
And it's just the process of people figuring out how to solve problems and move forward and create solutions.
Exactly.
And to me, without that process, we can't actually solve problems.
That's right.
So this is not a small thing that we're trying to solve here.
Right.
And I know this was hinted at in the film, but it strikes me that the enemies of problem solving are probably the ones that sort of instigate this othering of the other side, because it's not only the case that it's uncomfortable to have a conversation with somebody else. It's actually, there's this new sort of ideology that says that words are violence. And so like it's almost like you're not allowed, even if you want to understand the other side. But tell me a little bit about the film. I know Tony's work was influential on the themes.
Totally.
Your work was influential on the themes. From a Mercatus perspective, what sort of led up to this project? Other things that you guys did that said, you know what, there's not only a problem, but maybe there's a solution.
Yeah, it started from conversations, right? Me talking to Tony, Tony talking to Christy talking to me. Just lots and lots of thinking and
Were they
processing.
hostile conversations?
No.
No.
Yeah,
I'm only hostile to you, Matt.
I know.
Like,
I can tell that most people seem to like you. So
yeah, it depends on who she's talking about, right? So she's talking to. So yeah, I mean, like I said, we'd been thinking about this environment for ideas, and ideas are important for a free and flourishing, peaceful society. And so how do we address this? Part of it is, bringing students together from different parts of the country to have conversations on difficult topics. We call that the Pluralist Lab. Part of it is bringing scholars together who are thinking about issues from different perspectives to help us think through what are the barriers, right? What are the potential solutions? And then, looking around and see what others are doing in the civil society space, and can we amplify that stuff? Can we pull together a network of people who are thinking about this and just, build a lot of energy around this stuff?
yeah.
So that's, we were thinking a lot about that. And then I met Tony, he says, this is what I'm working on. We talked about his book. I read it, and, we kind of challenged each other a little bit on the extent to which affective polarization or toxic polarization is an issue. And, we have to test this out. We have to figure out a way. And after talking to Christy's really thinking about this thing, and she says, look, maybe we should think about ways in which we can put this stuff on camera and test out this idea that ordinary Americans can come together.
Well, because otherwise, how do we scale it? Each one of these conversations is 6 people, and 6 people at a time is really labor intensive to do. But if each person who sees the film will then go out and have, a conversation with 6 people, and then we could have a multiplier effect. A film is something that's much easier to kind of spread, the conversations themselves are hard,
the film itself is scaling the conversation.
Yeah, that's the hope, because, I mean, my why is I want the world to be different for my kids. Like, I am not okay to just say, oh, we're just gonna let Washington D.C. figure this out. We'll let the people on the fringes determine the conversation. I am not okay with that, and so. I don't know. I don't think the film is going to change the world, but it's my own little piece that I can do, to try to help make the world more like the world I want for future generations. So specifically my 2 children, Ben and Sarah.
Yeah. You have an agenda.
I have an agenda.
Yeah. At Kibbe on Liberty, freedom is a lifestyle 24/7, something you live and breathe and wear every day. If that describes you, you need the very best Liberty swag in the market today, just like this shirt I happen to be wearing. Go to freethepeople.org/KOL and check out our exciting merch. You too can love Liberty and look cool. We were talking about this last night, that I had done a lot of work with Living Room Conversations, which was founded by a very good friend of mine now, Joan Blades,
Yeah.
who was, we were teamed up many years ago when I was considered right-wing Tea Party guy, and she was the co-founder of MoveOn.org, and she noticed very early on that we were almost being pitted against each other on purpose and being othered, and it's the same problem, because her model was you kind of invite people that you disagree with to dinner, and you have a conversation, and I've done a lot of that, and part of our theory in working together, we had started doing stuff together on criminal justice, and the theory was if nothing else, we could lead by example and use our reputations in hopefully a productive way to do that. But this project is frustratingly simple and impossible at the same time. And I want to go back to this question. You've been working with college kids, and it strikes me that there's a generational problem, because I was talking about this whole ideology of words or violence. Do you find it harder to get young people to talk to each other than, say, a lot of the characters in the film are adults?
Yeah.
Is that a problem?
It's a bit of a challenge. I mean, we see this in the research too, right? I mean, in terms of the ways in which young people are self-censoring, right, on campus, because they're worried about what others might say or do to them on social media. So, in their classrooms on campus, they are very careful about, what they might say that someone might consider violence against them, or just something they just can't handle or deal with. And so part of what we do is to help them understand that conversations are okay. Words aren't really going to destroy you. And that exchanging words with each other is important, so long as we're doing that respectfully, right? We lay down the ground rules. And these are rules that we probably apply on a day-to-day basis, but we're not thinking about them specifically when it comes to these types of difficult conversations. It's respect, right? Authenticity. We come to this, being very, very honest, not masking our views about who we are, and then curiosity. Yeah. Let's figure this out. There's something I'm not getting, I'm not understanding. I want to see how I might connect the dots a little bit better. It doesn't mean that I walk away abandoning my views completely and then just embracing yours. Oh, no. It just means that, okay, I have a better perspective. And so, they come into these things with a lot of, trepidation about what they might experience in these conversations. So yeah, to that extent, there's a bit of challenge there. But after the experience, they are, oh boy, over the moon. They're excited. They're like, wow, we can actually do this.
It's liberating.
Yeah. And they stick around, exchanging emails, texting each other. And I understand that a lot of them have stayed in touch, after the experience. So
all of the characters that you focus on in the film, they express that same trepidation, and you can see it when they are first asked to speak in these conversations, and they're all wondering, if I say this, is someone going to jump down my throat?
Yeah, and it's. I think that part of this is cultural too, right? We have this whole thing about don't talk to strangers. Danielle Allen has a book titled "Don't Talk." Talking to strangers. It comes from this whole idea that we're programmed to be, very mindful of, don't bring up religion, don't talk about politics. And so I think naturally we have this fear about bringing up these types of things. And we have to figure out ways to kind of break the ice.
So you're the filmmaker, and
I mean, I'm the director, but it's you know this.
Yes.
Everything is a collaboration.
Okay, so you like me, you take credit for everybody else's hard work.
I try not to. I mean, Carrie Conco, Casey Kirby, amazing editor. He also was the director of photography. Morgan Twist Garvey. Amazing folks. I'm so lucky. Carrie Conco, gosh,
So how did you come up with the, in one sense, and I said this last night to Ben, I was like, you made a focus group really interesting.
Thank you.
Because it's a series. The structure is a series of focus groups.
Yeah. People said to me, "You're going to use focus groups," but I wanted to show that this was like regular people, and if I specifically picked people who I knew, I couldn't authentically do that. I couldn't sell that.
Yeah.
I was a journalist, so I do have standards.
And you were. We should empty your closet. You were. I met you first 10,000 years ago when you were the producer for John Stossel.
Yes, at ABC News 2020, and then at Fox News and Fox Business. Yeah.
So, like, I would assume at 2020, it may be different than today, but you learned at a very early professional age to talk to people who were a little bit shocked and found you a little bit weird philosophically. Is that fair, or was it not like that back then?
You mean like at ABC? Like, what was it like at ABC? I mean, at ABC, I found, I think that the perspective that we were coming from, Stossel and I, and part of the reason I worked for him is because I do tend to, I think I'm a little softer sometimes, but I think I tend to think about things the same way that he does. Mm-hmm. But we had to be really buttoned up about everything we did. I mean, ABC is a great training ground for good journalism, or it was then. Standards and having to go through standards and practices and legal on every single word of every single script that you ever do, you're not going to screw up as much, And if you have people challenging because your ideas are different than what they might expect initially, it's kind of like going to the gym, right? You get a lot better at what you're going to do, and so.
I sort of learned from him from afar how to translate sort of obscure, abstract ideological arguments and philosophical arguments and even economic arguments, which I love.
Yeah.
But I realize that they're not particularly persuasive to people who don't process the world that way.
Yeah.
He would always tell a story, and he would always personalize it.
Yep.
And it would always be a story about someone. And that's what you guys succeeded in doing with this. It's a bunch of stories.
We wanted to tell the story of this. It's very Stossel-esque, actually. What you think you know ain't so. You think, and all the surveys actually show this. The surveys show that people think that we are much, much more divided and like toxically polarized, where you really shouldn't talk to somebody, and that people are much angrier than they actually are. And if you think that, people in our focus groups, the low was what, like 30%? The high was like 90%. They were like 90% of people are toxically polarized, and they were dead serious.
Yeah.
If you really think that about all your fellow Americans, are you going to go to the city council meeting? Are you going to actually speak up? No way, right? Because your worldview tells you that you're going to get screamed at if you do that. If instead you have an accurate version, which is that the vast majority of Americans actually can and want to have these conversations, and even if they disagree with you, they're going to be civil, suddenly you regain the power too, and you can be like, I'm going to engage. I'm going to make sure my voice gets heard. And I think I wish that the people who are like, words are violence, could see the consequences of that mindset, that it actually silences so much like of the beauty that is in this American experiment that we have, don't you? Like, because I don't think that's their intention, actually, because I think they're probably well-intentioned, they want to like be sensitive and protect people, but there are unintended consequences, I think, of that mindset.
Thank you for joining me today on Kibbe on Liberty and for being part of our fiercely independent audience. Every week, my organization, Free the People, partners with BlazeTV to bring you this show. My guests bring smart perspectives on everything from current events to timeless philosophical debates. If you like what you hear, go to freethepeople.org/KOL and support Kibbe on Liberty so we can continue to produce these honest conversations with interesting people. Now, let's get back to it. Yeah, there's an upside to the struggle the discomfort of having a difficult conversation about something with somebody. I've really, like, some of the funnest conversations I've had are with another friend of ours. We're both, I learned this last night, we're both members of the Civic Collaboratory, which
what is that?
This friend of mine named Eric Liu, a speechwriter for Bill Clinton, and he has a number of projects, but this one is really designed quite similarly to what you guys are trying to accomplish, to have sort of transpartisan conversations across the political divide.
Oh, cool.
Now, it's an interesting group for me because it is heavily weighted progressive. And I've always called myself the token libertarian that goes to these events. But one thing I learned very early on, which we knew but we didn't really internalize, is how tribal the language is for fill in the blank, progressive, conservative, whatever that is. And then I come back to my little libertarian circles and I realize we use the same bizarro language that even if we wanted to connect with somebody else, it's going to be very difficult because they don't know what that word is, like the nap. And we use that, and we like the non-aggression principle.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
You obviously don't know the secret handshake either.
Yeah, no, I mean, what?
This is good for you, yeah.
Thanks for teaching me this.
But so one of the messages I think of the film is what I would call localism. Like we gotta stop centralizing everything so that whoever has the presidency wins and vanquishes the other half of the country, and we have to shift responsibility and power and citizenship back to the local level. How important is that? Is that the key to everything?
It's critical. I think that we nationalize way too much, in terms of our conversations, right? That's a really key part of this. The other thing too is I think not everything is an existential crisis, right? I mean, healthcare.
We have to agree that this is the most important election of our lifetime.
Every election is the most important. I mean, it's amazing, when you listen to folks and they're so exercised about everything. Like, oh my gosh, the United States is just coming to an end, right? Because this person becomes a governor or becomes president or whatever. It's like, no, like if healthcare goes one direction, the reason we have the system that we have is that we can debate and discuss, think about reforms, build coalitions. That's how it's done. But, we have this sort of mindset that any issue that doesn't go our way is just an existential thing. And it's unfortunate because I think that on a lot of policy questions and issues, Americans haven't necessarily changed much. And if anything at all, they actually moved a little bit closer. You mentioned criminal justice reform, right? That's, there's a lot of agreement there. And there are other things too about, climate, right? People come at it from different perspectives, but, people have moved a little bit closer on some things. And that's fine. But I think what creates a lot of the polarization is the emotion, the fear and the anger, the sense that, oh my gosh, this other group over there, they are so extreme. Their ideas are threatening. They will destroy, everything.
Don't you think it's also like the power grab though too? Yeah. Also, it's like if I characterize the other side as, like I'm thinking about like the immigration debate.
Yeah.
That's a great one because it's like if I characterize, people who want to figure out a way, like a legal pathway to citizenship as, trying to like undermine all American values and like and do all these terrible things to the country, then suddenly I have a place where I can tweet in all caps and, try to raise money and maybe get on, cable news. And so suddenly like my power mechanism starts to gin up, right? Money and power. And it's not just money and power, it's also centralization of power, right? Away from the local not towards this national, which is, that is not a good dynamic. And I don't believe that there is some like law or rule that can come in and fix that. I think the only thing that fixes that is us on the consumer side being like, that's crazy. And being able to like literally put it aside and then say, no, I'm not going to participate in that. And we all can do that. I believe that we can do that. We're Americans are smart, you know?
Yeah.
They don't always act like it.
Power hoarding is a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
And there's every politician I know that's a good demagogue will do this, and you have to create a caricature of the political enemy.
Right.
And they may or may not know this, but this I don't think it originated with him, but this was a core tenet of Leninism.
Yeah.
Is that if you didn't have an enemy, you had to create one.
Right.
So that you could organize the people against that great threat
Right.
to the common good. So in some ways, like, this is a dilemma that I want to challenge you guys with. Politics is the corruption here, because, clickbait and demonizing the other, this is how people get elected. And I don't think that's a new thing. I think that's the very nature of the beast. So are we asking people to take politics back, or are we going to take it a step further and say, there's more important things than just politics, like cooperation at the community level?
Yeah, I mean, I think the right way to put this is what Robert Talisse says, that you have to put politics in its place, in its proper place. And if every part of our lives has been saturated with politics, and that's really not a good thing. And he says, look, we have to find ways to do things with each other that have nothing to do with or that our politics are irrelevant in those circumstances. And when we do that, we can create some civic friendships along the way. And if you create those friendships and you have conversations with them, you realize, oh my gosh, this person isn't as extreme as I thought that they were. Because I think what's happening is we're overestimating how extreme people are. It's interesting. They do these psychology experiments where they would share with they would ask Republicans and Democrats these interesting questions. They would say to Democrats, how do you think a Republican might choose? And they'd say 6 weeks before the 2020 election, the vaccines can be released even though they're not fully tested. It's not like 100%, but it's like 80%, right? Do you think Republicans will opt for releasing that if they know that that's going to help, Donald Trump win the presidency? And you ask Democrats, is it by all means 90% of Republicans are going to choose that? And then you ask Republicans, and maybe it's 10% or so who would say that. And so you reveal the results to them in real time, and they're like, what? Wait, what? And same thing on the other side, right? You ask Democrats, or Republicans, to what extent do you think Democrats are open borders, full, and they would estimate maybe 90% or so. And then the Democrats say, well, we think that there should be some laws and blah, blah, but, we think people should come, blah, blah. It's more nuanced, right? And they're surprised by this stuff, right? And I think that's a lot of what's happening. And the impression we have of each other gives these sort of conflict entrepreneurs, what Amanda Ripley calls them, conflict entrepreneurs, the opportunity to exploit, these differences, right, for the power that they're seeking, and so on. I think a lot of this is being aware, truly aware of what's going on.
If you made it this far into the show, it means I must be doing something right. Kibbe on Liberty is just one of the amazing products we create at Free the People. We tell emotionally compelling stories and produce educational videos for the liberty curious. Our award-winning documentaries personalize all things liberty, independence, creativity, hard work, integrity, and perseverance. After the show, check out our work at freethepeople.org. And if you like what you see, donate to support what we do. That's freethepeople.org. Now back to the show. I have this theory that I love that phrase, conflict entrepreneurs, that this the polarization that appears to come from social media is again part of this process of figuring stuff out, because we, on the upside, we have better information, we have access, and we can learn things from people that we think are just like crazy and weird. And you didn't, maybe 20 years ago you didn't even know that guy existed.
Right.
And so you're learning this, and it's radically democratized, right? But through all the noise, you can see a process by which people that really don't want to live in a clickbait world and don't want to be angry all the time at the other guys, that they're starting to figure out a process to manage all of this vast array of information. I tend to be optimistic about it because I believe that people can figure stuff out. Is that where we're going?
Yeah, I think people will figure stuff out. Although, the research, people like Rachel Kleinfeld have put out indicates that affective polarization, has been going up since cable news, talk radio, now social media. So I don't put all the blame on social media. I just think that we're in the process where, like you said, we're trying to figure out the right ways, the right lenses to take in information, to understand what's going on. And we're trying not to be sort of, we have to figure out how we're not shifted like one way or another, right, by someone's, wrong impressions about the world. And I think when the printing press emerged, right, information disseminated and people were trying to figure stuff out, right? There was all this conflict, in fact, some wars that emerged as a result. And I'm not saying that we're getting there, but whenever there's any new technology, new systems, people, figure it out. It's a little, choppy initially, but eventually we do. I think people are smart.
I would assume there were power mongers that said, this printing press thing, we can't let people have that information. We don't know what they'll do with it.
Yeah.
Somehow we made it.
We made it.
Yeah.
That's right. So that's, my optimism there.
Or we could just blame the person that worked at Fox News.
Right.
But let me temper your optimism just a little bit, because
Yeah.
there is also research that I will remind you of that shows that if we just let this toxic polarization grow, it can lead to really, really bad consequences. Jen Merkishvili talks about how looks at what happened in Afghanistan, and she really calls out, there's research that shows like if it gets to about 25% like of toxic polarization on either side, that can lead to war, like, and really to violence. And we if we don't, we need to get a handle on this dehumanization piece, and there's no reason why we shouldn't, like, because Americans, we don't believe in dehumanization. Like, that's not part of who we are. So we just I think we have to say, like, stop. Don't do that. On some level.
One of the most powerful scenes in the movie for me was when the gun nut from Pittsburgh with his closet full of AKs, and
they're in a gun safe. Come on,
and
they're in a
the
gun
single
safe.
mom.
Who's one of her sons was killed by gun violence in the months right before our filming.
And we're all, this is a spoiler alert, but we learned, even though they thought that they totally disagreed, she was in fact strapped because she had to be in her neighborhood to protect her family. But to me, the most powerful scene is when they go to each other's house and they see where they live and why they've made the decisions they've made.
I mean, they actually have become like friends. I mean, we didn't even know this until the movie was like done, but like they like invited each other to each other's weddings and stuff. I mean, like
that's so cool.
They're like, because they actually felt like they had a lot more in common. They're from Pittsburgh.
Sure.
And they're different races. They're in different kinds of jobs. They grew up in slightly different places, but they got a lot in common, actually. And they both care about their kids. They both care about, like, achieving the American dream. I know I sound like I'm like a Pollyanna-ish, but like that really, it's like I get super jazzed about stuff like that.
Have you considered a dating service?
No, they weren't marrying each other.
I understand. But
We get that question a lot. Yeah.
this gives a whole new meaning. This gives a whole new meaning to swiping left or swiping right.
That's totally true.
Well, let's. So the model is to get people to talk to each other and to rehumanize them, and to actually try to listen. Mm-hmm. And these are not small goals, but
no.
Let's talk about the project itself. The film is out, and there is a landing page, a website. You can sign up. You can pledge to not be an asshole anymore. I will never sign that pledge.
No, it's a respect pledge. It's like pretty basic tenets. And I think the reason why we have the respect pledge is because it's like, it's just like, I think it's just kind of like putting our stamp. You want to put your stamp and be like, yeah, respect is basic tenets of respect that like your kindergartner teacher, taught you, your mother, like, taught you at the dinner table. These are like, they're kind of important in civic dialogue also. So yeah, that's the pledge. But it's undivideusmovie.com. You can go there, sign the pledge, host a screening, get on board with like making the world a better place.
So you guys you've shown it a couple places, and some people have said, I want to screen this.
Yep.
It reminds me again like the power of decentralization might be the only way this project works, because getting together and watching a movie is in and of itself a community-based activity.
Totally.
And it's not like going to hear someone speak or getting lectured at, that kind of thing.
But if you get enough people to come to your screening and get them to sign up on Eventbrite, I'll send Ben. Or maybe me. All right. Did you see? Look, he just gave me.
Happy to go.
No, but like we'll come. We'll send you popcorn boxes. Like the more people we get to sign up for this, like we want to incentivize people to be like, all right, I'm in for the party, And honestly, the screenings are fun, and then afterwards, people want to keep talking. It's nice.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bottom up thing, right? It's one person having a conversation with another person, or bringing a group of people together and saying, hey, let's watch this movie, let's talk about this, and how might we talk about this thing that's difficult for us to talk about. How did you get to these ideas? And this is what I think you're saying when I hear you say X, and what do you think you hear me saying when you hear this? It's practice.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
One of the challenges on projects like this is that the organizer is probably the member of some tribe, and they've sort of defined themselves based on their beliefs. So that it's quite possible early on that some groups skew in one direction.
Totally. But we've screened this for like a group of conservatives, right? That was one of our real early screenings. And one of the key things that came out of it is they were like, we love this movie, but we're really concerned that liberals are really not going to like this movie. And so then we actually took that feedback and we're like, oh, geez, we must screen this with like a group of liberals. So then we screened with a group of liberals. And it was so funny in the post Q&A, somebody raised their hand and they said, loved the film. I really am concerned about conservatives liking this film. And so then we kind of felt like, okay, we've got the balance right, right? Because we didn't make this as a conservative or a liberal or libertarian film. We made this as like a plea for like the 10th Amendment, like let's get back to power reserved to the people. And how do we convince people that they can have that agency? And we want to go there.
I guess that experience is almost a metaphor for the film itself, that
totally.
This side is totally open to the conversation, but they don't think the other side's going to do it.
It was kind of funny. Like it was, we did not expect, I don't think any of us expected that was going to come out of it at all.
No. It just goes to show that we're making a lot of assumptions about each other that we should not be making.
Yeah.
So
leave it to Ben to bring it all like metaphorical.
So more film festivals.
Yep. We
A bastion of conservative thought, the film festival world.
Exactly. No. We'll be at Durango, at Red Dirt, at New Hope, at Through Women's Eyes in Sarasota. We've got a bunch still on the docket. We're waiting to hear from, and we
going across the country.
Yeah, and we've got a distributor who's trying to sell it to streaming services. So that's coming up, and we're on Matt Kibbe's show.
Yeah,
this could be. You're going to regret committing. So what is the threshold by which Ben has to go to one of these viewings?
I don't know, Ben. What do you think? Like 200 people?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
All right, let's say 200 people. If
So
you can get 200 people signed up.
How many thousand days of the year do you have?
No, I mean it's not. It won't necessarily be Ben, but we have Ben, we have Tony, we have me, a couple of the other producers for the film, and we also have some of the experts from the film are willing to go to do screenings also. Yeah. So like we've got kind of a bastion of people who are like, I mean, we all kind of just feel like this is really important.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't want to be away from my kids. Like, I'm like going to the airport after this. I'm flying home. But like, I'm willing to do it, because I want to help make the world like a freer place for them.
So someone watching this, can they actually see the film now, or do they have to organize an event in order to see the film?
Right now they have to organize an
trap.
event. It's a trap. But it doesn't cost anything. It's free. If you'll organize a screening, like we'll get it to you. Yeah. So that's a good thing. Yeah, reach out. Screenings at, I don't know what the website. I think it's screenings at undivideusmovie.com.
Yep.
Yeah. Or if you just go to
undivideusmovie.com, you'll get to the screenings tab. Yep.
Yeah.
So we got the URL.
You know better than me. That's terrible.
Can we find you guys on social media?
Mm-hmm.
I'm on social media. Yes.
Okay. Do you want to tell us where?
I'm on Twitter at Ben Klutsey. I'm on LinkedIn as well. Just search my name on LinkedIn and you'll find me.
I'm on Twitter, but I don't really do Twitter because it feels like an angry place to me. I do LinkedIn and Facebook. And
this is what's interesting
I'm on the gram. I'm on the gram too.
Yeah. This is what's interesting about Twitter. It turns out about 6% of the folks on Twitter are generating 73% of all political tweets.
Oh wow!
Right, and so you have a small group of people who are creating a lot of noise about politics and all this stuff, and most of us are just standing by and watching the arena, seeing people kind of go at it, and we get the impression that this is
real
the
life.
entire world.
Yeah, I feel like maybe X is another metaphor for what you're trying to do, because there is this reputation that it's angry and and zero-sum game kind of conversations, but that's dependent on the kind of conversation you want to have on X. And I don't do that stuff, and I suppose you get less traction being thoughtful, but somebody's got to do it. Right?
This is why I love you, Matt Kibbe. You quote Hayek and von Mises and other
and if my wife was here, she'd be like, "You're the reasonable one. We're screwed."
Well, this is part of why I'm so psyched to have been here for this interview, is because I don't know anybody other than you who quotes like smart people more than this man right here. He's always like, "Well, did you read this like random?" I'm like, "No, Ben, I didn't read that."
You gotta drop those Easter eggs in, because somebody watching this is going to be like, I want to dig a little bit deeper and respect the audience a little bit.
No. All right, we do have like a whole resource page at the undivideusmovie.com. Like we're adding more things there all the time. Like if somebody Carter Phipps just sent me this thing about depolarizing ChatGPT. Like they have this, and I was like, I don't know what that is, but it sounds really cool. Like I want to know more.
Well, as it turns out, my audience is is some of the most sophisticated people in the universe. So like it's not going to get better than this.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Exciting.
I'm excited. No, when you told me that, I'm pumped.
Thank you, guys.
Well,
Thank you for being awesome.
Really appreciate it.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. If you liked the conversation, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and also ring the bell for notifications. And if you want to know more about Free the People, go to freethepeople.org.